Welcome back to this week's episode of the Pivot Point Early Access on the Dynasty Theory Patreon, and then we kick it out on the YouTube feed. What's going on, Mitch?
What's going on, man? How's the vacation?
It was good. It was good. Minus my run-in with the authorities. Everything was good. But let's get into it here. We don't have all that much time before the weekly episode. And I said, I'm traveling. I was coming back yesterday. It was a 15-hour commute when it was all said and done. I put Mitch to the test. I tasked him with coming up with the show notes for the Pivot Point and the weekly episode. So today we are going to run through the top 5 most traded Dynasty players. And Mitch, is this based on Dynasty Daddy?
It is, yeah. So I use the Dynasty Daddy, the little bubbles, which is awesome. I got to add in T. Higgins and Atavion Wicks were on this list, but we've talked about Higgins a lot, and Wicks is kind of one of those players that if you have him, cool. If you don't, it's not a whole lot of value there. So I did skip over those two, so it's not really the top 5, but it's the top 5 that I wanted to talk about at least.
It's the top 5-ish.
Exactly.
Now the first one here, it makes so much sense because anytime we have a player that there is a piece of news that quickly shifts the overall market value, we see them being one of the most traded Dynasty assets. So Jordan Addison, 22 years old, last year, he had a fairly solid rookie campaign, 70 receptions, 10 touchdowns, wide receiver 31, 13 points per game. Obviously, we had the impact of Justin Jefferson missing some time. The quarterback situation was in flux. So Jordan Addison, before we get into some of the trades, how do you view this? Because so many conversations on Twitter, Discord, wherever you look, are centered around Jordan Addison.
Dude, it's hard because I could already hear what Dan would say if he was on the show. Dan would be like, look, guy's a knucklehead. He's shown he's a knucklehead so far. But what he's also shown in the NFL is he could get 10 touchdowns on 70 receptions, which is a crazy high amount. I mean, he should have got 4 to 5 with that many receptions, especially with that many targets. I mean, he had 110 targets with 70 receptions, which is crazy that he had that much. And the quarterback play wasn't all that great for half the season with the Vikings last year. But for me, it's hard now because that was last season. But yes, he did have Kirk Cousins. But now he's going into a season with Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. And you could be the biggest J.J. McCarthy fan in the world, but there will be something in the back of your head is like, is he going to be able to throw really well in the NFL? Maybe, maybe not. I'm one who believes Jefferson's going to get his. Hawkinson's going to get his. Addison might get to where he got last year, not touchdown-wise, but probably target-wise. So for me, I'm not really going all in to get him. But is the news changing it for me? No, it just makes it so I'm really not going to go out and get him at this point, right?
It's funny because for me, I'm going through and updating my Dynasty tiers. Again, it was a little bit of time there. But Jordan Addison was somebody that I was viewing him as a player I'd like to move. And we have a decent amount of shares in our co-managed leagues. I have a ton across my portfolio, fan since he was at Pitt. And the touchdown production, you have to believe that comes down a little bit. I would think it comes down to 7 or 8%, especially if his volume, if his target share, we see a little bit of an uptick. Now you have Sam Darnold, you have JJ McCarthy, who starts out for the Vikings here early in the season. But also we have to look at the fact that yes, TJ Hawkinson is there, but how much is he really going to play in 2024? Yeah. How much of an impact is he going to have, even if he does play? So that kind of goes into it, the Jordan Addison situation, 2 driving issues here in the last year. And I think there's still more details coming out on the most recent one. There were reports that he was asleep, blocking a lane of traffic. I don't know. So we'll wait for more information when in that regard. But Jordan Addison, a player I was looking to sell, and I'm not saying he's a buy for me quite yet, but his value for me is not shifted. but it's getting to the point, it's getting very close where Jordan Addison is going to be a player that I might be looking to acquire in certain spots. Even if he misses a few games due to a suspension, does that affect his long-term production? Now, he's got to stop with this shit. You can't keep doing. I mean, it was like a 140 last year and a 55 or something. Yeah. And it was cat or dog was sick or whatever. And now this, like, you gotta cut it out, man.
Dude, I mean, there's also the added thing to where he just had a teammate die in a DUI crash.
Yes.
And then 2 days later, Jordan Addison is posting pictures of mimosas on his Instagram page. So, I mean, this is one of those, I will go back to the Tyreek Hill situations, right? Jordan Addison isn't the same tier player, but that sort of thing. This is where you got to make a decision. If you think this player can kind of get away from this stuff, have 3 or 4 more good years, then then you should go out and buy him. But if you are out on this kind of player and you don't feel like this is just a young kid not really getting it, this is just who he is, then you should be trading for the prices that we'll talk about here in a second, because the prices are still good. You can still get good value out of him. He hasn't dropped to like a mid-second round price at this point. He's still going to that late-ish first, early second-ish price. So now's a good time to take a gamble on it.
And, the coaching staff can only do so much, I think, whenever situations like this come up. But you would think like a veteran presence on that roster would be like, what are we doing? Like, you grab him by the collar, dude. Yeah. Especially with the additional context, like you mentioned, a teammate tragically passing away because of a DUI.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Anyway, let's get into some trades here. Rachaad White for Jordan Addison, and all these super flex 12-team full PPR.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going Rachaad White just because I love his upside this year. I think it's a good offense. And I think that's a really good price point to get off Addison at this point.
This was Rachaad White for me even before.
Oh, okay.
And again, I think Jordan Addison, he's probably going to settle in. What's his ceiling really? Low end wide receiver 2?
Yeah, maybe. That is his ceiling without a doubt.
So yeah, your Rachaad White, I think the shelf life most likely is going to be shorter. Well, that's up to Jordan Addison, I guess, here with what he continues to do off the field. But you're going to get overall more of a consistent high-end usage from Rachaad White. We see those spike weeks from Jordan Addison, but are you getting it on a weekly basis? Is he truly going out there for the most part and winning you weeks? I mean, Rachaad White could drop 20 every single week in PPR. 2025 first for Jordan Addison.
I'm taking the first. It's just because of what that first can be. Even if it ends up being the 112, all right, you're not losing that much value. What if it's the 109? What if it's the 108 or earlier? Then all of a sudden you're making a huge value. So if you could get even a competing first for Jordan Addison, I think you make that move. And I think you make that move even before this stuff happened this past week.
We are in lockstep right there. I'm willing to move what might be an early 25 second and then add a small piece. But like we always talk about, I'm willing to get up there in value without having to move the 25 first. I'll take any 25 first. I will take any 26 first.
Oh, agreed.
For Jordan Addison. You're getting that value insulation. You're getting out of that situation altogether. Forget about off the field stuff for a second. The quarterback question marks, obviously, that could negatively impact him as well. And you're going to be able to pivot off of those picks if you're looking for future production for a piece that you can see kind of how they're being used as the season progresses. Travis Kelce for Jordan Addison, full point tight end premium.
I'm taking Jordan Addison here. There's just not a lot of teams that I'm going to go out and get Kelce on.
Really?
I'm not, dude. I know he's probably going to play for another 2 years. I really worry about the amount of work he's going to get in the offense. His snap percentage is going to drop just like it dropped last year. They put so much talent around him now on that offense that it doesn't have to just be the Travis Kelce show. So for me, I will move off Kelce for that, but then I'm probably going to move Addison immediately after.
See, I'm the other way, especially if contending. Like, you would have to think that in most situations, if you have Travis Kelce in your roster, you're in a situation to contend. Now, if you're in one of those spots where it's like, I've been trying to move him, I can't find the right asset to get Travis Kelce off my roster, I certainly get it. But all things equal, if I'm in a position that I'm actually looking to acquire Travis Kelce, I'll ship Jordan Addison off. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to that Rashad White conversation where Travis Kelce, he could just give you that 20 points every single week. And even if it's for a year or two, I'll take that over maybe 11 to 13 from Jordan Addison moving forward. Jordan Addison and Trey Benson for Drake London in a 25 fourth.
This one's hard. I've been hedging a lot on Drake London for me. And I know everyone's like, it's Drake. But what if Drake isn't the Drake that we hope he can be, right? So, sorry. So I'm going to take Drake here, but it's really my love for Trey Benson that's holding it back. I think Trey Benson's going to be an absolute stud once James Conner either moves on or gets injured. I think Trey Benson's going to have that backfield and run away with it. So, I mean, it's Drake London, but I just really want to say I like Trey Benson.
I like Trey Benson as well. I also will take Drake London. Moving on here, Brandon Aiyuk. Again, we have the off-the-field issues with Jordan Addison. That creates a market. Brandon Aiyuk, there are question marks with the contract. He requested a trade, late last week. What are we doing with Brandon Aiyuk? 26 years old. He gives you the production. He was a high-end wide receiver 2 last year, just under 16 points per game.
Dude, he's a stud. So, I'm willing to get him on the vast majority of my teams because I think the guy is just talent, top 10 wide receiver in the league, easy. It's hard for him to get to be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver just because right now there's still Kittle. There's still Debo. There's Christian McCaffrey. There's Ricky Pearsall. They have a lot of talent there, and they do spread the ball around quite a bit. But I think he's the best of the bunch. So if I can get the best of the bunch on that offense, that's what I'm going to do.
All right. Now, is there any thought that he might not be?
No. We've talked about this. I have been adamant. He is not leaving. You can't tell me Kyle Shanahan, who has been this close to winning a Super Bowl over and over and over again, is going to be like, you know what? I'm really worried about what's going to happen next year. I'm going to move this talent off my roster to help us out. It's not going to happen. Brandon Aiyuk is going to play for the 49ers this year, and then he'll get franchised next year, and he'll play for him then too. Debo can be gone after this year, but it's just not going to happen this year. I don't think there's any way that Kyle Shanahan isn't going to have the most talented offense that he possibly can.
On previous episodes, I had mentioned, I think this was with Dan, that I thought there may be a 50-50 shot Brandon Aiyuk would be gone. I'm starting to come back to earth here.
That's good.
I'm starting to come back to
earth.
He's
no longer going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I'm sorry.
We'll see. We'll see. No, but
he isn't.
I know he requested a trade. I don't think that gets granted.
So I was just going to say real quick, just so everyone understands, players on the rookie deal, they can request whatever they want. They have absolutely zero leverage. If they don't show up, they get hit hard in fines every single day they miss of camp. I mean, these aren't little fines. They're really big after the last CBA. There's nothing he would have to not show up for training camp, get all those fines, get fined throughout the week, then show up week 10 so his contract can toll so it could actually count for this year. He can't do it unless he saved all of his money. And they used to be able to write off those fines. They're not allowed to do that anymore. He has to pay those fines if he gets fined for them. So it's absolutely crazy. I mean, he's going to show up. That's how it works for rookies now. But the NFLPA signed it. It's not the owners doing it. It's the players doing it to themselves too.
All right. 12-team Superflex, full PPR. Drake London for Brandon Aiyuk, a 25 second and a 26 third.
Give me whatever side has the package. I'm taking Brandon Aiyuk in this one since it has the additional pieces.
All right. Nico Collins. This is a fun one you found.
Mm-hmm.
Nico Collins and Brandon Aiyuk for the 24-101 and the 24-205.
I want to say it's the wide receivers, but it's Caleb. For me, you give me Caleb. I will hope that he has the upside and hope that he keeps his value. Just, Nico's the one kind of hedge there. If you change Nico and you put in like a Drake London that's kind of close, I'd probably go Drake London and Brandon Aiyuk just because I really like their ceilings this year.
If let's just say that you were going to use that 2024-101 on Marvin Harrison, like you're like, I don't like Caleb, I don't want to reach on anybody else. Would you then take the wide receivers if you were dead set on that's Marvin Harrison?
Yeah, if it's Marvin Harrison, I'm taking the wide receivers in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Brandon Aiyuk and Matthew Stafford for Davante Smith and a 25 first.
This one's kind of tough because Matthew Stafford is, if you need a quarterback for the next 3 years, he's a darn good one to have. And then you get Brandon Aiyuk with him, who is vastly better than Davante Smith, but that 25 first. I would have to assume if someone is moving their 25 first for a Matthew Stafford, Brandon Aiyuk, they think they're contending. If I also think they're contending, I'm going to want the Brandon Aiyuk and Matthew Stafford side. If that 25 first can somehow turn into a mid, I'll probably go that way. But, context is key in Dynasty, man.
I have the wide receivers as a wash.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to, if I'm looking to move a Matthew Stafford, I haven't been able to get a 25 first. So kind of based on the market, I will take Davante Smith in the pick just because if you're looking at that package and you're pairing a Matthew Stafford with Brandon Aiyuk, I think you could do something else outside of that 25 first. It could be some pieces again that get you to that value while not having to move it. And then especially if that team you're acquiring the 25 first from is extremely top heavy. Let's say they're extremely fragile. And like you said, that pick could creep up to a non-playoff first. That's a big time win for me. Tank Dell and Demario Douglas and Jalen McMillan and a 25 second for Brandon Aiyuk.
I like how you didn't go with Pop Douglas in the notes.
I hate the pop. I hate it. Like I don't call him Pop Douglas. I don't care if that's what he wanted to be called. Demario Douglas.
That's great. So I love Tank Dell. I'm going, this is the same as the Drake London thing. Whatever side is getting the package added to it, I'll take it. I'm getting Tank Dell and a second and some throw-ins for Brandon Aiyuk. That I'm going to take Tank Dell.
All right, moving forward to Davante Adams, a little bit older, 31 years old.
So you do know why he's being traded, right? You know why he's this high. It's because of the receiver show on Netflix. I guarantee it. His little whining stuff that he's done on the show, not whining, but making good, solid, creative points on the state of the Raiders. I guarantee you that's why he's being traded, because people are like, maybe he actually will get moved in the NFL. I don't think he will. I think his contract's impossible to move, but maybe.
And we've talked about him on previous episodes. The listeners know I've had him in green. Everybody in the Discord pokes fun because I'm like, I've had that mother in green for months. Well, he's in red now. The update this morning, he's gone to wide receiver 26. He's 67th overall in 12-team Superflex. Like, that's a little too high for a guy that is 31 years old, and you're hoping he gets traded because I still think he puts up 14, 15 points per game, but we know that cliff, when it hits these guys, I don't know that it's all, I saw a chart talking about, like, I think it might have been Dwayne McFarland that put it together. It was like showing what you previously did and the drop off at wide receiver. Was it gradual? Was it right away? So I don't know. It's just, you get very hesitant and very gun shy, I think, when it comes to 31-year-old wide receivers. Anyway, Tank Dell, Jahan Dotson for Davante Adams in a 25 second.
Tank Dell. I mean, if you could get out of a 31-year-old wide receiver for a Tank Dell, I think you do it.
I will agree there. Davante Adams for Christian Watson and a highly valued 25 fourth.
Dude, I stand for Christian Watson, and I'm still standing for Christian Watson. It's Christian Watson for me.
I'll take Davante Adams here.
Man.
I think you could get like a 2-3 swap instead of the fourth. I think you could get maybe another piece instead of that. But again, it's kind of a move that makes sense. If you're not contending, there are cash out opportunities, and that's what these trades show you more than anything, I think.
Yep.
Jalen Waddle and a 25 third for Davante Adams and a 25 first.
I'm not the biggest Waddle fan in the world, but I am going to go Waddle here, even with Adams and the 25 first. I think points-wise, I think Waddle and Adams are going to be extremely close this year. It's just what happens, like you mentioned, next year and the year after. Waddle is still going to keep being good, and we're going to see that decline happening in Adams. So I'll go Waddle.
I'm going to take the production that is probably fairly flat when comparing Waddle to Adams over the next year or two, and I'm going to get the insulated value in that 25 first. It gives me some more flexibility. So give me Adams in the first there. Davante Adams and DeAndre Hopkins. What are you can't
I had it misspelled. So I was trying to fix it real quick before you got there.
No, I saw it already. I'm going to ignore it. Davante Adams and DeAndre Hopkins for Xavier Legette, a 25 second and a 26 second.
Yeah, this is like the old man club, or do you want some future random picks? And I'll take the old man club on a competing team. I think these two still weekly are great starters, even if prayful. Hopefully they're in your flex spots. These guys aren't even like your wide receiver 1, 2, or 3. Hopefully they're just your flex guys. And if that's the case, then that's going to make your team that much more of a contender. So give me the old man club.
Yeah, I agree here. This is a move because you would think that you feel like you're a contender, especially if these are your picks, that you're moving with Xavier Legette and a player that you probably snagged in the maybe middle of the second. And you think Davante Adams and Hopkins give you the additional flex appeal, the additional depth, and they push you over the top here in 2024. If you have Adams and Hopkins, I would look to maybe consolidate that and even add another piece for a higher end dynasty asset. And obviously we're not getting into the Pukas, even the Drake London, the Chris Olave.
Maybe AD Mitchell, though. Just something with some more dynasty upside than a Xavier Legette.
But I was saying even get rid of the picks in general, too. Like,
okay.
Can we do Adams and Hopkins for DJ Moore? Can we do Adams and Hopkins?
No, you cannot.
I think that could get done somewhere.
I do think you can. You're right. I'll just give it a cut.
All right, let's move over to running backs here for these last two. Zamir White, people love him or hate him.
Yeah, and that's why the trades happen, because if someone has him on their team, there's going to be a manager in your league that likes him. And it might not be the owner that has him, so they'll end up being a trade. There was actually a lot of trades done with Zamir White, and I get it. I'm still I can't buy into him. I've bought into this prototype of a running back so many years prior, and I've yet to see it work out for more than 1 year. It just doesn't. These guys just, if they're not replaced this season, they're replaced next offseason, or they're Dameon Pierce, right? Dameon Pierce, I think, is the most recent one that is like the perfect example. He had a great year. He didn't do anything wrong, and they've replaced him 2 off seasons in a row. I mean, it's what's probably going to end up happening to Zamir White too.
All right. Well, Zamir White for Xavier Worthy. JJ McCarthy for Baker Mayfield and Zamir White.
I'll probably go Baker and Zamir here. I trust what Baker is in the NFL now.
That one I think is spot on.
Yeah.
The first one.
Do you have a lot of JJ McCarthy on your teams?
I do, actually, and it's because
have you received a single offer for him? I don't think I have.
No, I've attempted to package up and try to get that quarterback upgrade. There's very little interest in JJ McCarthy, but if somebody else has JJ McCarthy, they have hope. Yes, they have optimism that he's going to be the next big thing in the NFL. So I don't know. I'd like to see how many trades have happened over the last week that are centered around JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, there's 6.
I don't know if there's that many. All right. AJ Brown for Zamir White and Michael Pittman.
I'm going Zamir White and Pittman on this one too.
Again, I
Dude,
always
I
joke,
love Pittman, man.
I do too, but you've changed. I will take AJ Brown here.
I've changed.
You've changed for the worse. All right. Let's see. Zamir White, Bryce Young, and a 25-second
So sorry, that was a 26
and a 26 third
Yeah.
for Tank Dell and a 25 first.
I'm going Tank Dell and 25 first. This is showing me a lot that I should be going out and trying to get some Tank Dell, because so far he's been on the cheaper side on most of these deals that we've seen. And I don't have any faith in Bryce Young really turning around to a point to where he is a viable starter on my fantasy teams. That's my thing now, right? Like he could be good for the Panthers and he could be perfectly fine. I just don't know if I'm ever going to be like, yeah, that's my weekly starter right there.
I would go Tank Dell in the 25 first. Is there any gap between the 25 first and 25 second where you switch? Like, obviously, if they're back to back.
Yeah, I mean, if it's close, then yes, I could probably see myself doing it. But purely random, absolutely not.
And it's interesting that somebody would move a 25 first. Like, you would think they have two other very viable options at quarterback.
You would think, unless they're just a huge Carolina Panthers fan, man.
Or
Alabama
maybe it's somebody else's first.
Yeah, it could be. Could easily be.
All right, Zamir White for the 24,205.
I think that's the perfect price for him if you could get him there. And I'll take Zamir White for a mid 24 pick or a mid 25 pick, whichever, wherever you are in your draft cycle now. I will take Zamir White. But if it ends up being early, I'm not going to be doing it.
Yeah, I'll go Zamir White there as well. All right, last player here. We'll go through it quickly. Zack Moss, 25 second for Zack Moss. And this has happened multiple times.
It was all over on Dynasty Daddy. There, I could have picked like 5 of them. I'm going, 25 second. I can't. I'm not doing the whole Zack Moss thing.
I will take the second as well. All right, and then that gets us over to where do I have Zack Moss?
You have him below Zamir White, I believe. I believe it was one.
There he is. There he is. Okay. I was like, did I delete him off the sheet?
He's gone.
I will take that second as well. Yeah. Zamir White or Zack Moss?
Zamir White.
Zack Moss and Wan'Dale Robinson for Ben Sinnott and a 25 second. And this is an additional point for tight ends.
There's a lot of Ben Sinnott trades. I even got a Ben Sinnott trade done this week. I don't know if there's hype going off about him now, but I'm going to take the 25 second. I know Ben Sinnott's with it, but I'm taking the 25 second.
Yeah, I agree there. I agree. I actually got a Daniel Jones, Wan'Dale Robinson stack in Scott Fishbowl.
Ooh, nice.
Like he was like in the 16th round. So
like, I'm gonna.
I was like, I honestly, I was like, I'm gonna do this so I can tell Mitch and Dan.
I like stacks. Stacks are good.
I know you do those sexy stacks. All right, George Pickens, Michael Pittman, and a 26 second for Zack Moss and Tyreek Hill.
Give me the young wide receivers. I'm going Pickens and Pittman.
And then Devin Singletary, Joe Mixon, and a 25 third for Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Mooney, Zack Moss, Aaron Jones, and this is 1.5 PPR for tight ends.
Okay, so I put this on there just so that was the context of most of the trades with him. It was, hey, there's a huge package on one side, a huge package on the other side, make it work. And so this one, I will go Pat Freiermuth and the Mooney and the Moss and the Aaron Jones, but that's, just what that package is. Just know that when you go out to trade for him, just put him into a package. I mean, I think it's just the really smart way to go about it because you don't have to try to line up Zack Moss's value. A first and second down plotter that might play a little bit on third down, but probably not a lot. And Bengals don't want to run in the first place. So I would just say stay away from Moss unless you need, a back end flex play somehow.
Yeah, if there's a deal that's close enough and you can get any of those, like, let's say you like any of these guys, a Zack Moss, Raheem Mostert, I think Nick Chubb still has too much name value, James Conner, Austin Eckler, Jerome Ford, hell, even if you like a Gus Edwards, like you can get them because they're small enough from a value perspective. You can get them added to larger deals. And I don't know if it's going to make or break it, but it might be able to push you over the top.
Yep.
All right. Well, these were the top 5 most traded players that Mitch wanted to talk about today.
Yes, it was.
So top 5-ish. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode of The Pivot Point. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like, hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.